Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.6. Alright, I've taken a little while off from playing this game after we defeated the Soviet Union. As you can hear now, this is obviously time after I got the new microphone, so that has changed the audio. Would like feedback mostly on levels, audio levels and that kind of thing. But other feedback is always welcome too. Now, I have done a lot of work a while ago, and then I did about 45 more minutes worth of work. Obviously not with that core, but with a lot of other units, sending them in other directions and other places. A lot of them are heading down here. A lot are already here, but to get sent off somewhere else. I'm going to be using a lot of Romanian and Hungarian type troops to watch the border with the Soviets. So we're going to do that. I've basically decided now that I want to puppet Turkey here, because they're just not going to join the Axis. Not that it's impossible for them to join the Axis, but obviously no one's influencing them right now. They're moving towards the Allies. There are some events I know in TRE, that's Third Reich events to you who don't know, that improve German relations with Turkey. One I think is in sometime late 43 that basically the Turks look at a Tiger tank as a photo I found of some Turkish officers crawling all over a Tiger tank with the Germans looking around. Sort of, propaganda. Hey, we've got these great weapons. Why don't you join us? So that improves relations a little bit. But none of the events, including von Papen being sent as an ambassador, are enough to counteract the sort of code in there that works to keep them neutral. Because otherwise, if you didn't have the code in there to be neutral, because they did go to war on the Allied side eventually at the very end, that was mostly so that the Soviets wouldn't have an excuse to invade them for some reason. But it was very much at the end of the war. I don't think they saw any fighting. But they wanted to be neutral. They wanted to stay out of the war. And which, like Switzerland, if you didn't have code to limit their drift too far to one direction, it'd be just too easy to get them in and either create a southern, flank here or outflank the Allies there. So I totally agree with the idea of the code. Trying to keep them neutral, though, obviously there are conditions that would make them join the Axis, and one of them I would see is Axis victory in the Mediterranean. Oh, and another thing is the Turks were rather anti-Italian. Not like on we hate Italian people kind of ethnic terms, but they saw, the government at least, saw the new Roman Empire, if you will, of Mussolini as being a big threat to it. So as far back as sort of the, maybe before, but definitely I found magazine covers and things over the Ethiopian invasion published in Turkey that were very, very anti-Italian or anti-Mussolini. So they were very much worried about, joining the side that would then at some point swallow them up. But by the time you've got Axis victory in the Mediterranean and Axis victory over the Soviet Union, I'd put that down to as things have changed, sort of like once you get U.S. and British troops on the German border and you get Germans pushing, or the Soviets pushing in on the east, and Romania and Bulgaria collapsing, then you get the Turks joining the Allies. So, but I haven't coded anything else, and I don't know that anyone has. events, so I want to puppet them. Now we are still, I know this is going on, you can jump ahead a few minutes if you want. Just want to sort of explain some things here. What am I thinking and doing? I'm considering going after Persia too, but they are moving, and there aren't specific codes, to my knowledge, that keeps them out of the axis. There is an event. I was just sitting here thinking, did I disable or change it? That I know I've changed in the past. That will split Iran up between Britain and the Soviet Union, because basically the Soviets decided to invade Iran, and Britain decided we don't want the Soviets fully controlling Iran, so we're going to do an equal invasion from the south, and basically a peaceful invasion, though. You got to realize, guys, when Hitler took Austria, it was a military invasion. They invaded with the German military, just there was no defensive shots fired because the Austrian army didn't resist the invasion because of, political maneuverings and readjusting general thought in Austria that joining the German Reich was a good thing to do. So the Austrian army didn't resist, but there was still an invasion there. And that's something that you need to remember. So this was a military invasion by the British and the Soviets to open up, at least from the Allies' perspective, to open up a more reliable landward Lend-Lease path into the Soviet Union. So that, I also think it's Stalin trying to build buffer zones, but that's my opinion. So they did that. Now, like I say, I went in and modified the code a time or two. I don't know whether I've done it this time. That keeps that event from firing if Iran is in the axis, because it fires only if it's at peace. So if I got it in the axis and got them at war, because I like to just get them in the axis and keep them neutral, just be able to move through Iran. You don't have much of an army, but part of the reason that they had not been wanting to join the Axis or move too much is you had British territory sitting on their border, and there wasn't German territory until just recently. So that's that's changing, obviously, now. So I'm moving some troops down here to potentially come into Iran to facilitate an invasion into India. Now, of course, if we get Iran in diplomatically, they could still move across Iran to get to India. So we're looking at that. Like I said, we're sending lots and lots of units down here, potentially to go for an Indian invasion. If you remember my last series, I did the Indian invasion before going after the Soviet Union. This time we're looking at after. So that changes things, obviously. And I don't know what I want to do about Saudi Arabia or Iraq. Those are moving towards us. I currently don't plan on invading Spain or Portugal. They are being influenced, so hopefully that will happen in a more peaceful time. And we will be facing very shortly Operation Torch, the Allies' invasion there. So that's what we're looking at doing. I've set up a, decided to call it Indian Theater, or what's that, the Supreme Command for India, just looking more at the Indian Ocean than India the continent. But, so I'll very much admit one of the things I'm sort of poor at is post-conquest cleaning up of all the extraneous units everywhere, getting them ready for the next invasion. these guys are going to be part of the border patrol, if you will. We have these revolt risks that won't go down beyond a certain point. So let's continue with that. Get people moving. Okay, armor unit training advance and naval ground crew training. Okay, first let's deal with armor unit training. 42, yes, we can stop that. I know we're well into 42, but let's get sort of things even out and get the 41 techs. Completed and nav air ground crew type things. Okay, and that's also in 42. These guys should be stopped as well, I think. We've got a moderate amount of these, so let's improve those. I've also put a lot of radar stations, air bases, primarily into production, or they will as things appear. We have a few big 34, 33, 25 ICs that will be clearing out very soon. And so we just get, no, but we'll be getting some of the big super transports and things done as well very soon. So that will get into these, which a lot of these are key places looking into Britain. So Spanish state energy, yes. Now that will help us a little bit to influence them to our side. Now let's see, I want to see, I have these units here because, oh well, you should be attached to a headquarters. Okay, you're full. You're full. You're not. Okay. The third. You're not, but I don't know how many other units. And you're not. So let's just go through and make sure all of these guys. Okay, you're not attached. So let's, since you're way far east, let's keep. You're watching that port down there. These are sort of reserves because they will invade, not necessarily right at the main ports. Mountain unit would be most appropriate. Yeah. Let's send this back here. Well, since that's a Panzer unit and we had the other one here attached to a Panzer Grenadier, well, let's attach this to the mountain unit. Okay, They are too far away, so... Well, let's send them overland. They'll get there. I already have 5 units attached to them? Yeah, wow. Here's Group Mediterranean there. There we go. I've sent over. They may be already here. Yeah, some of them are here. Okay. Do I have more of the heavy transports around? Okay, that's one's already there. 40. Order, they're already there. They're going to there. We'll be able to fly in the supplies. There. Let's send you back over here. So we have still many more exciting conquests to make. One thing I'm going to be looking at very carefully is once we get units out here on the border, and after a while they're sitting there, can we supply them? You may go, well, of course, but what's the supply tax going to be like? Because there is a tax. I know most of you know this, but and no, I don't do the math on all of this, so I don't know right offhand. Supply throughput, transfer, supply costs. That's the cost it takes to move it from each province to each province. Eventually, they can basically kill all of your supply as it goes. So, there's many provinces to go across. But through text, if we can get that down lower and lower and lower, it will help with that. Okay, short range aircraft production. That'd be here. Okay, yeah, they're both 42, so we're gonna let those continue, and twin engine fighter prototypes. Okay, they're grayed out, so that's why we have these are fairly out of date. Definitely have some, but not huge numbers. Okay, we have massive amounts of supplies. So we're going to still want a positive balance, but we make slightly more than we are consuming right now. But just shift those that we're not. Okay, that's a good choice for that. Right now. Not that he couldn't command even a higher. Right unit. Bonholm. Not sure that that's how you pronounce it, but... Okay, so we spotted a convoy out here that we couldn't handle. Okay, now while I'm thinking about it, I shifted some LA fighter here. I want, because they're bombing me strategically there, so let's put you up to their intercept. Try to deal with that. Where is it that they're bombing me? Oh, maybe here. Yeah, there. Stop that bombing. Okay. Our bombing sites have improved. Avionics, okay. Well, we might as well get that going. And we're attacking into there with them, but don't we have, yeah, these guys supporting. We're almost to there. Okay, so you start to push into there to cut them off. And also I did send, oh, they're just almost there. These guys. At least I don't think we're going to have too much fuel problems in the near future. You know, the whole freaking system running out of fuel. Okay, I'll reload and I guess basically can't pick up that African Rifles unit. And for multiple reasons I want to come here first, I think. Rebase. Actually, no, let's cancel that. Let's see if we can come here. Well, no, let's go here. So I want the police units to help keep revolts from popping up. Okay, a bunch of stuff going on now here. I want to put these motor torpedo boats out here to okay, that's too far out. Cancel. Here. Let's do convoy raiding. Just short range convoy raiding, but just trying to deal with any convoy still coming up through there. Okay, ground attack tactics have advanced. 41. Yes, I do neglect my air stuff. It's multiple reasons, but some of it is just I don't know how. Well, air can be very effective, but I just don't maybe use it as well as I should. I'm gonna let that go, I think. Okay, rebuild the 9 Unterseeboot flotilla. Yes, we want to rebuild it. That'll be cheaper than pulling new stuff. This is one of the events that keeps firing too often. Needs to be redone. Another one of these. Yeah, we'll take the German reinforcements for North Africa, and that, of course, is a post-war colorized picture of Rommel saluting German vehicles driving by. That's, I believe, a Horch vehicle. That's a spare tire there that's sort of up high with a 20 millimeter anti-aircraft gun, just identifying what's going on in the photo. The push of the Africa Corps to seize Egypt was stalled in autumn 1942 by well-prepared, fully supplied, and determined British resistance near El Alamein. The OKW decided to send Rommel yet another batch of precious and scarce specialized units to crush the British forces and finally to break through into Egypt. Okay, now let's take a look. And I was also asked recently, one of the messages below, about if Rommel was, if there was sent enough stuff or enough supplies, enough equipment, enough units, whatever, could it have taken North Africa? And my question was sure, it very well could have, partially in the term enough, because you do enough of anything, yes, you will succeed. Now, autumn 42, which you know about now, of course, the primary focus is fighting in the Soviet Union. So the Mediterranean was a sort of secondary front. The U.S. was well in the war, almost, not quite, but almost a year now. But their presence sure was being felt in the Battle of the Atlantic. You know, it was being felt various air power situations over Britain and such, but it really hadn't been felt on the battlefield. Production, yes. You can look at the M3 medium tank, often known as the Lee or the Grant, just two different versions of it. The Stuart tank. Now, and I always think of the Stuart tank as light tank, but I've been reading about some of the stuff recently. And it had armor about as thick as a Panzer III at about 1941. And it had a gun about as effective. They're both 37 millimeter guns. So you can get into details, and I don't have them right in front of me, which, you know, combination of details of how long the barrel is, how big the chambering is, you know, powder behind the bullet that goes out, and what the bullets are made of, you know, that all, you know, so not all 37 millimeters are equal. But generally speaking, 37 millimeters kind of anti-tank rounds are one way and are very different than a 75 millimeter high velocity anti-tank round. You know, you can categorize them. So they both had 37 millimeter weapons on them. So, and the Stuart was, I think, better power to weight ratio, and it was definitely a smaller, more compact design. So it could move around better than a Panzer III in most cases, and you know, was lighter, smaller, hard to hit. Though the Panzer III was a fully, properly developed tank in a non automated world. And the reason I sort of couch it in those terms is, yes, the turret rings were, and the Panzer III and a lot of the newer tanks were, you know, motorized. But still, you aimed the gun often by human power, you know, lifting your shoulder up or down. You know, that's how a lot of the tank guns, you aimed them. You didn't have, some, though the bigger and heavier, yes, you had, but even those were now still human cranked power up and down, left and right, handled with the turret. But so that you need humans to operate the things, no autoloaders, and a, you know, assistant radio operator kind of thing to help keep the radios functioning and that kind of thing, is a 5-man tank crew, and we've often talked about how that. So Panzer III is that, you know, is that sort of fully developed tank that does get up armored as time goes on, does get up gunned obviously to the 50, and then finally to the short barreled 75 once they got the hollow charge rounds working right as an anti-tank gun. But so it isn't better than the Panzer III, and the Stuart goes through its M3 through to M5 variations and sort of stays as a light tank. But the British sort of, yeah, they realized it was a light tank, but hey, it's also sort of a tank we can take on, definitely take on the Italian tanks with, and about, because it didn't, and they even tried to, and I'm supposedly they did put in a fifth man into that little turret, and I don't know, because it was the earlier models without the turret basket. See, have been reading a bit about this, and I guess he almost sort of like sat on the floor or something down below the turret and fed. I'm guessing, I haven't seen a picture of how you got 5 guys in there, but you can't fit, almost literally, you can't fit 3 people in that turret, because there's basically 1 person each side of the gun. And the early models had no turret basket, and then there was a drive shaft going through the middle with a metal case over it. So I think the guys just sort of crouched down and sat on the drive shaft, which was often generally just padded as a auxiliary seat there. But, and I think just so he just sort of reached up over his head and loaded the 37 millimeter round in. It only lasted a while, I believe, as they tried to do it to have fast reloading, but it just ain't really practical. So it's a 2-man turret operation. So it's set up as a light scout tank, is what the Americans sort of designed it for, but the British were using it in the 42 framework as sort of additional take on enemy main battle tanks, as sort of a lightish main battle tank, as opposed to, because they were still using the Mark 7 50 caliber armed, sort of cute little Vickers tanks that have a water-cooled 50 caliber machine gun in them as a reconnaissance vehicle. So not as good as a Panzer III, but still almost quite just barely there, kind of thing that they were using. So America was being felt in supplying them on for the British, but that was trickle supplies coming mostly up the Red Sea at this time. So this is a sideshow. Now, as I responded to the sorry, I forget which who it was, but in my opinion, they sent enough units, because there was almost enough units there. I would say they sent enough fuel, enough ammo, and enough equipment, resupply of newer tanks, more tanks, of trucks, enough stuff. They sent enough to Rommel for him to be victorious in North Africa. Problem is, much of it didn't get there. See, they sent, we need X amount of fuel. Don't even want to throw out a number. Okay, we'll load those up onto Italian or other ships, and send them to North Africa, because obviously you have this massive, endless hole of almost like a black hole. You'll never fill it, of sending supplies east to keep the German armed forces in the east going. How many more artillery rounds do we need in the east? As many as we can send, literally. So there's never enough there for the great huge armies fighting on the Eastern Front. So what do you need, Rommel? Okay, well, practically, okay, well, we'll send you that much. But because of the Enigma machines / ultra decrypts that were happening, they were knowing when the ships were sailing. Now they also very much, there was 1 or 2 people, a small group in Malta that knew about the ultra stuff, and that, but really most, even the generals that commanded the units did not know about ultra in the Middle East. So sometimes they were leery of following some suggestions coming out of London, because how does London know? Well, London was reading Rommel's mail, which sometimes caused problems. Now they would sometimes say, our spy told us, or gave that kind of thing, but they would also very much vector spotting planes and other things to sort of cover, so that the Germans would see, there's a spotting plane. 3 hours later, a torpedo would sink the ship, because that kind of thing, and they had already vectored, oh, hey, submarine, patrol this area, without saying that we know that there's going to be a convoy coming, and just patrol this area kind of thing. So there was a lot of supplies, reinforcements, whether men or equipment, going to the bottom of the Mediterranean. So not nearly enough was getting to Rommel and the Italians and in North Africa. So my point is enough was sent, basically, I think, for Rommel to win, and I don't know the percentage, but large amounts of it did not make it. So had they oversent, had they go, okay, yes, let's say 40% of everything we send is going to end up on the bottom of the Mediterranean, so we've got to oversend by 60% to make sure, because it's not just going to be, they're going to sink 40% of what they extra send, so to overdo it. I don't know if they could have, but I do believe once you get Crete, you're now through air, you could also, the other thing is this is all presuming that you're still fighting on the Eastern Front, as opposed to do what I want to do in, say, 41 of not going after the Soviet Union, but concentrating on the Mediterranean. But even if you are going after the Soviet Union, you could still put even more German Luftwaffe units in this part of the world to identify and sink submarines. And if you look at some pictures, even modern pictures of a sub, if you fly over it, you look down, you see it under the water. You just do, unless it's deep, and it's got to be rather deep. And a lot of them, if you look at, down to 100 feet, dive down to 100 feet. That doesn't mean you're under 100 feet of water. That means the keel, the bottom of your submarine, is down at 100 feet. The submarine with its conning tower, that's probably, 30, 40 feet? So that's just 50 feet under the water for the top of the conning tower. So, they could dive deeper, but if you're just at 30 or 40 feet, or something, at the keel, and getting ready to go and attack an enemy ship, you're still sort of visible, particularly in the Mediterranean, because the weather was clear and the oceans were pretty clear. This is from reading some books on the subject. So that if you can get an aircraft right above the submarines, you could spot them pretty easily. But just out in the ocean somewhere, no, because you got to sort of be right above them, not sort of like a little blip on the horizon. They've got to be sort of right above them. So had you constantly circled the convoys that are going to North Africa, coming sort of this way through to Tobruk kind of thing, not just periodically over, not just try to respond to Allied air attacks, but constantly had significant air swirling around them, had motor torpedo boats and larger torpedo boats with better anti-submarine stuff, basically get the Italian Navy to operate better. You really could have, I think, sent a lot more supplies. You still would have lost some. I'm not suggesting you wouldn't, but you could really hit, as well as really continue to plaster the air bases down here. So Rommel very well could have won. Now we sort of try to take the naval approach of doing a counter an invasion in the rear, which obviously would have very much changed the situation. So yes, we will take additional support for Rommel. Now, does that show up here? No. That shows up down here. Okay, good. So we've got some additional units. And the Fall of Moscow event, which has already happened, but they've already collapsed. The 27th Panzer Division was formed in October 42 on the southern Russia from Kampfgruppe Mikhailuk, formed from elements of the 22nd Panzer Division. It fought at Vorunsk and some other unpronounceable place until it was disbanded 15th of February 1942. Basically, I believe after the Stalingrad disaster, if I have those dates right. and absorbed into the 7th Panzer Division and the 20th. We can do it with 1 Panzer Battalion and 1 Infantry Regiment, or go... just for fun, we're going to go historic. Now, what are reinforcements? Caught up, and... well, those are the... okay, so... okay, so basically... we're going to get filled up as things go. Okay, he looks good. Don't know if you pulled him off of some other, though he's on the inactive list, so maybe he got pulled a little sooner. Okay, well, let's send him down here. While he gets rested now. Are increased reinforcements for Rommel. Flak Division. Somewhat useful. Yes. As we've seen way too many of them get... okay, Grenadier Regiment Panzer. Okay, this looks like, even though that is air landing infantry, I think it, well, LL Mo, Luftland Regiment, motorized. Though I don't know if it really is motorized. Though it's called motorized. What sort of speed does it? Oh, okay, that works. That actually works pretty good speed once it starts moving. Bushy, whatever. We'll give him a Luftwaffe commander. Not an AA guy, but one of the better ones, I'm guessing. Shuren. There we go. I don't know if that would be air mobile with the tank destroyers. I sort of doubt it. Okay. Now, I sort of knew this was coming. We'll load you up on ship. Yeah, I'm sure we can. Mobile units. Okay, yes, we'll just transport you to there. That works. Uh-oh. The sort of monthly outbreak in partisan violence. Those SBs supported unit will probably do just fine. Oh, they're already fighting their own. Glad they did that, because quite honestly before I'd sort of always thinking, no, I don't want, it's supposed to be a harder campaign, got to garrison it, so I normally didn't do Serbia so big, figuring it would just be too easy to occupy. Basically, Serbia should not be able to effectively control its internal capabilities, and it looks, I don't know how many HQ units they have here, but sort of kind of looks like they barely could. Time to dig in. Snowfalls increase, but we've already defeated them. We've defeated them. One campaign season. And yeah, I did some obviously starting late, but I don't think starting late specifically made somehow the Soviet Union incapable to defend itself. Now, I think the sort of southern naval landings. That okay, yes. We'll take this because I want the naval HQ for going to the Indian Ocean. Okay, on November 19th, 1942, Operation Uranus began. The great Soviet counteroffensive encircled the German 6th Army and much of the 4th Panzer Army and smashed What is that? 48th Panzer Corps. Sorry, I don't read Roman numerals that fast. Including the 22nd Panzer Division, many of the division's tanks had been parked in dugouts for an extended period of time and protected from the frost by straw. When the tanks were called on to respond to the Soviet offensive, it could not be started because mice had sought refuge in the straw and then in the tanks, which chewed up the insulating electric wires. The ability of the division to put up an effective resistance was also compromised by the appeasement. Oh, God. Alexei, this is one of yours, you units of the Third Reich. You've got to put a choice on this. Because... I'm just guessing it may be down there. We're looking for the 22nd. Because this may not happen. I may not be as... Well, I did sort of... gamble and rush towards Stalingrad and did almost get pocketed there, but I may not actually be that bad. And there's the 23rd Panzer Division and get everything shot up so badly. I just want to find out where it is. Now this isn't as tragic as what would happen if I was fighting just fine but critically deep somewhere else and had this problem. There we are. What sort of... That's a nice motorized battalion. German trucks. 2,000 supplies, 5 manpower, at least 50 metal. Well, that isn't such a big thing. I just would prefer not to cheat and keep it, so I guess we'll lose it. But this needs a yeah, I get the idea that this is a yeah, sort of a scripted upgrade, but and that's a nicer division, most assuredly. That is a nicer division. Panzer Grenadiers and all that. Yeah, no, it's a nicer division. That's worth the money. But I'd at least like the opportunity to go, yeah, not now. Because, like, we got all these guys, these are just headquarters, but we got all these guys moving down here. We've got a stack, oh, just that so far, but we got, you can see lots of stuff moving back here to the various ports. So, if they had been tied up in combat, and we have the 26th. Okay, radars for destroyers and frigates have advanced, and there, stop that, and then I think we need to come over here. Still not sure why they do it in both places. Here again. Don't, because I understand they both help, but I don't just understand why there isn't one. Okay, the 26th Panzer Division was formed September at Belgium from parts of the 23rd Infantry Division. Okay. Oh, well, this one we don't lose anything. Transfer training and coastal defense and remained there until 43 when it was sent to Italy where it fought the Allied landings. Okay, now, and I definitely done some of this before. Is like, hey, you make the decision early on whether you want to build the Atlantic Wall or not, and then the events are just going to fire. You don't like get to opt out of them because it's a long program and you got to sort of plan ahead. And if these are units that are additive, because we've sort of paid with modifiers, you know, I'm presuming part of this somewhere in there is being paid for in costing modifiers, either now or before. I'm fine with that, but it's when you pull something out of the line that is when I'm, and that is nice, but not as nice as the other one. I don't know, we'll leave it there for the moment. Right there. I don't know if we're going to wait for the Allied landings, give them fuel for exchange for money. No, you're not doing anything, Romania. You don't get fuel. Sorry, go buy it from somebody else. You're just occupying yourself. No. At least I don't really foresee them doing much. Okay. Deploy industry air wings. Oh, let's pause this here. I just don't like things going away. To fill the ranks of the Reich Air Defense and to provide on-site defensive measures for essential aircraft production facilities throughout the Reich. The test fly phase of newly built fighter aircraft was utilized from the Selbstschützen Schafflerin, or industry protection wings. These wings would take off in case of imminent Allied bombing attack. Okay, yeah, that's sort of, because obviously you want to test out aircraft before you send them to combat, but have the test pilots actually having, you know, machine guns there and arming the you know, because normally you have some warning time, but be able to load the machine guns up to sort of impromptu do that. Okay, so basically for cost of supplies we get some defense, air defense network gain. How are we doing with air defense? It's under nation, isn't it? Artillery, yeah, air defense network, there we go. Well, that's something. Okay, the reason I hadn't done this before, I think, is over the manpower issue. Maybe supplies production too, but yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll go with that. And we've got to be doing better for manpower with the Soviet occupation. Now, no, where are some of them? Just these guys here. If you remember, a lot of them came undermanned, depending on which nation, to sort of represent their actual strength, but what strength they would have. Okay. No, actually. Let's attack into here. I want you to support that attack. across the river. There we go. And we want that fast. You come there. You keep pushing into there. And now as soon as you can, you push into there. Flying boat prototypes, well, good. And yes, we'll convert that over to naval bombers. No thank you. We don't need it. Oh, here, okay. We'll load these guys up. Naval and air headquarters and some flak units. Well, let's first stop will be down here. I don't know that we're going to keep them here, but first stop, then we'll figure out where we want to send them. And also here. Okay. These guys, we're going to put them up to air intercept, biggest area possible. There's also, I moved one and then I decided I wanted it somewhere else here. These guys. Base to there. For now, we're going to put you on air intercept duty. You're not great air interceptors, but I don't know what we're going to face down there. Okay. Yes, upgrade the 3rd Panzer Corps. 3rd Panzer Corps was formed in June 1942 from the 3rd Army Corps. The Panzer Corps was now attached to Harris Group A. The formation tasked with capturing the Caucasus as part of Fall Blow. Okay, let's see, until January 43, so that just brief time that we're gonna... Expensive, but okay. Hope there's a lot of nice supporting units to that. Now it looks like we're not giving, we're just barely under enough to the needs of the civil population to keep them happy. Quit doing that. I wish it wasn't so sensitive over on the side. Oh, there we are. Okay. That's neat. That's nice. I like that. Well, you know, some of the good things about sending all these... See, I really feel, I don't know how you feel at this, at this point, is I've sort of created, I feel like I've created this massive great army here, you know, with all these great divisions and all this stuff. And now what kind of thing? Now that you've created it, obviously in real life, soldiers want to go home, and you know, no one wants to be either freezing out here in the Russian winter or boiling out here. If you look, it does. I know this this is desert here, but desert is not, or the other non-desert isn't necessarily a condition of being cooler than this. This is just drier. Now you get in the mountains, you get some elevation again, but that gets awfully hot. So not that these guys want to be out in all the bad weather and dying and all that stuff, but you got this really great instrument and what to use it on next. At least that's sort of how I'm feeling to some degree. But we've got to the Urals. Okay, these guys made it here. Okay, here we go. We gotta pause this here. Operation Torch. Well, I think we're gonna save all of that for next episode. So I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, I really also love hearing from you. Questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections, whatever. Please post them below. Thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.